Hello and welcome to Snoozy Tour, the channel where history, storytelling, and the quiet rhythm of the past gently guide you into rest. Tonight, we're riding back to the American West of the 1870s, a land of dust and stars, of weary cowboys and endless horizons. Together, we'll follow the trail north with 2,000 longhorns across rivers, through storms, and into the bustling cow towns that mark the edge of civilization. It's not the glamorous Wild West of movies, but the real story. Hard days in the saddle, laughter by the campfire, and the quiet strength of men and horses who lived beneath the open sky. So, find a comfortable spot, take a deep breath, and let your body relax. As the cattle move north and the prairie wind whispers through the grass, we'll drift into a world that shaped America, and maybe, just maybe, drift into sleep as well. The first light of dawn stretches across the endless prairie, painting the sky in pale streaks of pink and orange. You stir awake, feeling the chill of the night still clinging to your bones. The earth beneath your back is hard as ever, the thin bedroll offering little comfort against the packed dirt. Your muscles ache from yesterday's long ride, each stretch a reminder that life on the trail is no romance from a dime novel. It is dust, soreness, and survival. Around you, the faint sounds of men rousing from sleep drift through the cool air. Bedrolls rustle. Boots thud softly as they are tugged onto tired feet. Horses shift on their picket lines, snorting softly as they sense the camp stirring to life. A faint smoke curls upward from the direction of the chuck wagon, and with it comes the smell that every cowboy waits for in the morning, the bitter, rich aroma of coffee brewing. You pull your blanket tighter around your shoulders for just a moment longer, savoring the last scraps of warmth. The wool is scratchy, the edges stiff from weeks of dust and sweat, but it is yours, and that means it is precious. Finally, with a sigh, you roll to your side, push yourself up, and sit cross-legged in the cold dawn. Your breath rises in faint clouds, and the prairie stretches before you, flat, endless, and humbling. It has been 3 weeks since the cattle drive began, 3 weeks of pushing nearly 2,000 half-wild Texas Longhorns northward toward the railhead in Abilene, Kansas. The pay isn't much, $35 a month, but it is steady, and for men like you, steady counts for more than anything. The work is punishing, the food monotonous, and the dangers constant, but there is a strange freedom in this life. Out here, a man is judged not by his past, but by whether he can do his share to keep the herd moving and survive another day. Your body protests as you stand, knees stiff, back sore, and feet numb from the night chill. You brush the dirt from your pants and reach for your boots. Experience has taught you one habit above all others: shake them out before sliding your feet inside. Out here, boots left on the ground are invitations to scorpions or spiders. You learned that lesson once, the hard way, and you have no desire to repeat it. A quick shake, a few taps against the ground, and then your feet slide into the tough leather, molded to the shape of your legs after months of wear. Your hat waits beside your bedroll, wide-brimmed and sweat-stained, a faithful shield against sun, rain, and dust. You set it on your head and tie your bandana loosely around your neck, ready to pull up over your face once the dust cloud rises. Around you, the other men move with the same practiced rhythm. Nobody needs telling what comes next. Morning routines are automatic now, a choreography of survival. The cattle lie quiet in the distance, some still chewing cud, others rising slowly as the light grows. Their dark shapes form a living sea against the horizon, horns jutting upward like strange, twisted trees. They are the heart of this drive, the reason for your labor, and also the source of its greatest dangers. 1,000 hooves can trample a man flat in seconds, and you know all too well how quickly calm can turn into chaos. Coffee's on. Cookie's voice cuts across the camp, rough as gravel but carrying with the authority of a man who controls the most sacred treasure on the trail. The cook may be grumpy, short-tempered, and stingy with his biscuits, but he is as vital as the trail boss. Without him, no man would last long on this drive. You make your way toward the chuck wagon, falling in line with the others. Tin cups clink, and the dark brew pours steaming into each one. The first sip scalds your tongue, but you don't care. The bitterness is medicine, a tonic for exhaustion. As the warmth spreads through your chest, you glance around at your companions. Mexican vaqueros with their sombreros tilted low, former slaves who now ride free on the open range, European immigrants still speaking in heavy accents, and American-born boys barely out of childhood. Different backgrounds, different languages, but all equal out here. The trail makes no distinction except between those who can endure and those who cannot. The sky brightens, the sun creeping over the horizon, and already the day's labor looms. Soon you'll be in the saddle for 14 hours, driving the herd mile after mile across an unforgiving landscape. Your hands will blister again, your throat will fill with dust, and your horse will bear as much burden as you. But for this brief moment, cup in hand, the quiet of the morning lingers. The prairie breathes softly, vast and eternal, and you stand among men who know its silence, its cruelty, and its beauty. Another day begins. The chuck wagon is already the busiest place in camp by the time you shuffle closer, tin cup in hand. Cookie, the cook, stands guard over his domain like a surly priest at a rough frontier altar. His fire pops and smokes, sparks rising against the pale morning sky, and the smell of frying bacon mingles with that of boiling coffee. For cowboys, this is as close to heaven as the trail ever gets. The chuck wagon itself is a marvel of frontier ingenuity. Charles Goodnight first built one a decade ago, modifying an old army supply wagon into something that could carry everything an outfit needed to eat and survive on the open trail. A large wooden box attached to the rear folds down into a work table, with compartments crammed full of flour, beans, bacon, coffee, salt, dried fruit, and whatever precious luxuries Cookie can get his hands on. Pots, pans, ladles, and knives hang from hooks or bang against one another whenever the wagon moves. Beneath it, spare harness, tarps, and sometimes even medicine are stored because in the middle of nowhere, this rickety wagon becomes doctor, pantry, and lifeline all at once. You join the line of cowboys waiting for breakfast, each man holding his battered tin plate and cup. There is little chatter. Most men still wear the heavy silence of dawn, their thoughts fixed on the long day ahead. The cook doesn't offer conversation either. Cookie is famous for two things: his foul temper and his uncanny ability to stretch limited supplies into meals that keep a crew alive for months. He doesn't smile, doesn't waste words. His way of showing care is slapping a spoonful of beans so hard onto your plate that the grease splashes onto your shirt. "Eat up," he grunts as he piles food into your hands. You won't see better till sundown, and maybe not then. The meal is predictable: bacon, beans, and biscuits washed down with coffee so strong it could probably remove rust from a horseshoe. It's the same food you had yesterday, the day before, and will likely have tomorrow. But out here, consistency is a blessing. Hot food is hot food, and it fills the hollows of your stomach well enough to face another 14 hours in the saddle. You take your plate and find a patch of ground near the others. The men sit scattered in a rough circle, eating without ceremony, some crouched on their haunches, others cross-legged in the dust. The sound of chewing mixes with the hiss of the fire and the low murmur of cattle in the distance. The air is sharp with the smell of wood smoke and frying fat. A boy named Eddie, one of the youngest hands on the drive, gulps his food so fast you wonder if he even tastes it. "Slow down," Tom, the grizzled veteran sitting nearby, mutters without looking up from his own plate. "You eat like that, you'll choke before the herd gets moving. Be a sorry way to die." Eddie blushes but doesn't slow down. Hunger makes men reckless. Diego, the Mexican vaquero with a permanent glint of mischief in his dark eyes, takes a deliberate bite of biscuit and says, "Don't listen to him, Eddie. If you choke, Cookie will just dig a hole and plant you like a bean. Maybe you'll sprout more biscuits." The other men chuckle quietly, careful not to let the cook overhear. Cookie hates jokes made at his expense, and no one wants to face a week of thinner rations as punishment. You sip your coffee, wincing at its bitterness, yet grateful all the same. The warmth spreads through you, chasing away the morning chill. Around you, the men eat quickly because food waits for no one on the trail. Cookie cooks one batch, maybe two, and when it's gone, it's gone. A man who dawdles risks going hungry. As you finish, you glance again at the herd in the distance. Already the cattle are stirring, massive bodies shifting, horns catching the morning light. 2,000 restless animals waiting to be moved. The trail boss's voice cuts across the camp like a whip. "Mount up in 10 minutes. We've got miles to cover before sundown." Men rise at once, scraping the last beans from their plates and tossing the remains into the fire. Tin cups are drained and handed back to Cookie, who takes them with a grunt. There is no thanks, no ceremony. Cowboys show gratitude by not complaining, and out here that's enough. You roll your bedroll quickly, tying it tight with practiced efficiency. Everything you own is wrapped inside. An extra shirt, socks, a razor, a photograph of your mother, and a pouch with the wages you've saved so far. It isn't much, but it's all you have. You strap it behind your saddle and feel the comforting weight of your revolver at your hip. Out here, Everything a man owns must be portable, useful, and ready at hand. The camp transforms in minutes from a scattering of weary men into an organized outfit ready for the day. Horses are saddled, ropes coiled, hats pulled low. You feel the familiar anticipation rising in your chest. Soon you'll swing into the saddle, take your position on the flank, and join the long, slow procession northward. Another day of dust, sweat, and danger awaits. For now, the chuck wagon fire crackles behind you, the smell of beans still lingering on your breath, the warmth of coffee steadying your hands. In the rhythm of trail life, this ritual marks the true beginning of each day, a moment of community, sustenance, and preparation before the cattle move, and before the great expanse of prairie swallows you once again. Your gelding lifts his head as you approach, ears pricking forward, eyes bright with recognition. He knows the rhythm of the trail as well as you do. By now, he has learned that the smell of bacon and coffee means the day's ride is near, and with it, hours of steady work. You run your hand down his neck, feeling the warmth beneath the short, coarse hair, and murmur softly, "Morning, old boy. Hope you've got another 15 miles in you." The horse leans into your touch, snorting softly. He's no beauty by town standards, dusty coat, scarred hide, a notch in one ear from some long-forgotten scuffle. But he's steady, sure-footed, and smarter than most men you've met. Out here, that's worth more than looks. You begin your inspection the way every cowboy must. Carefully, thoroughly, with the knowledge that your life depends on this animal's health. You kneel, running your hand down his foreleg, feeling for heat, swelling, or tender spots that could mean trouble. His muscles are tight but sound. You lift each hoof in turn, scraping away packed dirt and small stones with your pocket knife. A stone left in the hoof could lame a horse within hours, and a lame horse on the trail means disaster. Satisfied, you tighten the cinch strap and adjust the saddle blanket. The leather creaks as you pull the worn saddle into place, the familiar weight settling on his back. The gelding doesn't fuss, he's used to it. You check each strap twice, then 3 times because a loose cinch during a chase or a river crossing could kill you both. Your bedroll, coiled tight, gets strapped to the rear. A canteen hangs from the pommel, sloshing faintly with the precious water you'll ration all day. Your coiled rope, your lariat, is tied to the saddle horn, its hemp rough against your fingers as you test the knot. You pat your revolver at your hip, not out of vanity but necessity. Rustlers, hostile strangers, wild animals, none of them give warning, and steel at your side can be the difference between surviving the trail or dying nameless in the dust. Nearby, the other men are working through the same rituals. Horses stamp hooves, snort, and shift as saddles are cinched, bridles adjusted, stirrups checked. The air is alive with the sounds of leather creaking, metal clinking, and the quiet murmurs of men talking to their mounts. Each cowboy has his own way of soothing his horse. Some speak in English, others in Spanish, a few in words so soft they're more hum than language. It doesn't matter. What matters is trust. On the trail, your horse must trust you as much as you trust him. "Don't look like much," Tom calls out as he passes, tightening the strap on his own sorrel mare. His voice carries the rasp of a man who has seen more years on the trail than off. "But that nag of yours has more cow sense than most greenhorns I've ridden with." You grin, patting the gelding's flank. "He knows when to move before I do. Saves me from looking foolish." Tom snorts, adjusting his hat against the rising sun. "Plenty of things out here make a man look foolish. A horse that saves you from half of them is worth keeping." As the last preparations are made, the outfit begins to take shape. Saddled men gather, reins in hand, waiting for the trail boss's signal. The chuck wagon crew clears away the fire, loading utensils and supplies back into the wagon's compartments. The air grows tense with readiness, that quiet anticipation before the day's work begins. You place one foot in the stirrup, haul yourself into the saddle, and settle into the worn leather. The motion is second nature now, your body sliding into the familiar seat as though it were carved for you alone. The gelding shifts his weight, testing your balance, then stills. You tighten the reins slightly, feeling the bit in his mouth respond. From up here, the world looks different. The prairie stretches farther, the herd in the distance appears more vast, and the men below seem smaller, less burdened by the weight of dust and cattle. The saddle may be uncomfortable, but it is your true home, molded to your shape by years of riding. You nudge your horse forward a few steps, testing the reins and stirrups. Everything feels steady, secure. The morning sun warms your shoulders, promising heat to come. Already you can see the herd beginning to stir, horns glinting in the light as the lead cattle shift on their feet. A deep lowing rolls across the grass, and you feel the familiar twinge of nerves in your stomach. 2,000 animals, half wild, restless, and prone to panic. Today, like every day, you will guide them north. The trail boss rides past, his eyes scanning the outfit with practiced precision. His voice is as rough as ever when he calls out, "Mount up, boys. Time to get them moving." And just like that, the ritual ends. The day's true work begins. The trail boss sits tall in the saddle, his frame outlined by the rising sun. His hat brim casts a shadow across his weathered face, and his voice cuts clean through the morning chatter as he calls the men together. This moment comes every day but never feels routine. Orders given here may mean the difference between a smooth drive and chaos that could scatter cattle across 20 miles of prairie. You ride closer, reins loose in your hand, your gelding shifting beneath you with nervous energy. Around you, the other riders form a loose semicircle, their horses stamping hooves and flicking tails against flies. The chuck wagon creaks in the distance as it begins to roll out, setting the pace for the day's march. "Listen up," the trail boss calls, his words sharp and deliberate. "We've got near 20 miles to cover before sundown, and the cattle are restless after last night's cool air. Keep your eyes open and keep 'em tight." He points his quirt, a short whip, toward the herd already beginning to stir. The massive animals grunt and low, their horns like a forest of white and brown against the prairie grass. Dust stirs with every step, foreshadowing the choking haze that will soon engulf the outfit. "Positions," he barks. "Point riders, you know your job. Keep them steady and aim true. Flank riders, keep the sides from drifting. Drag riders." Here his eyes linger on the men who always draw the dirtiest duty, eat the dust and keep the stragglers moving. "And I don't want to see a gap big enough for a rabbit to slip through." A few men chuckle dryly, but no one mistakes the seriousness behind the joke. A gap in the herd can mean cattle breaking loose, a chase across half a county, or worse, a stampede that puts every life in danger. You shift in your saddle as the assignments fall into place. Today you've been put on flank duty. Not the easiest job, not the worst. You'll spend hours riding the edges of the herd, keeping hot-headed steers from veering off and guiding the line back toward center when it bends. Dust will coat your skin, your lungs will ache, and your horse will tire under the constant turning and circling. But it is necessary work, and necessary work is the cowboy's creed. The trail boss's voice drops slightly, but carries just as strong. "We'll be crossing dry ground today. No water, till near sundown. Ration what you got and don't waste it." His gaze sweeps across the men, daring anyone to argue. No one does. Water is life out here, and even a single careless man could endanger the entire outfit. Beside you, Diego mutters under his breath in Spanish, "No water, no shade, no rest. But plenty of dust." He flashes you a grin, his teeth white against his sun-darkened face. "Ah, amigo, what a glorious life we lead." You can't help but smile, though it fades quickly as the trail boss raises his quirt again. "Move him out," he shouts. The herd lurches forward, reluctant at first, then with gathering momentum. Horns clack together, hooves thunder against the ground, and the lowing builds into a deep chorus that vibrates in your chest. The ground trembles faintly beneath the collective weight of 2,000 animals, a reminder of the raw power you are tasked with guiding. You ease your gelding toward your assigned spot along the flank. The animal's ears twitch, his body tense but ready. With a soft word and a gentle tug on the reins, you guide him parallel to the herd, keeping your distance close enough to correct strays but far enough to avoid being gored by a sudden sweep of horns. All around, the outfit finds its rhythm. Point riders angle the lead cattle into a rough wedge formation. Flank riders, yourself included, shape the moving mass into a line that flows like water across the grass. Drag riders take up the rear, their silhouettes already blurred in the rising dust. Above it all, the trail boss rides like a watchful hawk, scanning every shift and ripple in the herd. The first mile passes in near silence except for the sounds of the cattle and the occasional call from a rider correcting a steer. The sun climbs higher, the air warms, and already dust clings to the sweat forming on your neck. As the herd stretches across the prairie, you feel the familiar mix of tension and pride. Each man has his place, each task woven into a fragile system that keeps chaos at bay. It is not glamorous work, but it is honest, demanding the best of your skill and endurance. And as the day unfolds, with the horizon endless and the herd moving steadily forward, you remind yourself that for all its hardships, the trail is a place where a man's worth is measured clear and true. The orders have been given. The march has begun. The day's trials lie ahead. The sun is only a hand's width above the horizon when the herd truly begins to stretch out, thousands of hooves thundering against the prairie soil. The sound is steady, almost hypnotic, a low rumble that seems to come from the earth itself. Dust rises in great brown clouds, carried by the morning breeze, stinging your eyes and coating your tongue. You pull your bandana over your nose, grateful for the thin barrier even though it does little to keep the grit out of your lungs. Your gelding moves easily alongside the cattle, ears flicking at every bellow and snort. He knows this rhythm now, the stop-and-go pulse of the drive. Every few yards you lean forward, patting his sweaty neck, murmuring a word of reassurance. Horses spook as easily as cattle, and if your mount loses his nerve, you're finished. On the other side of the herd, you spot Manuel riding point, his posture straight as a fence post. His hat tilts low, his reins loose, his entire frame radiating calm authority. The lead steers follow his movements almost unconsciously. A good point rider doesn't force. He guides with subtlety, creating confidence where fear might otherwise spread. Behind you, the drag riders are already vanishing into the haze. They have the hardest job of all, forcing stragglers to keep moving through the worst of the dust. Their faces will be black with grime by noon, their lungs aching, their tempers short. No one envies them, but someone has to do it. The first miles are always deceptive. In the cool of morning, the cattle move well. The men are sharp, their horses fresh, and the rhythm of the drive almost feels easy. But you know better. By midday, the sun will be merciless, beating down on man and beast alike. Tempers will fray, muscles will ache, and the herd will slow to a crawl. Already you feel the familiar itch of sweat running down your back beneath your shirt. You shift in the saddle, adjusting your weight, trying to ease the soreness that never quite goes away. The leather creaks, the saddle horn warm beneath your hand. Diego rides up alongside you, his grin visible even through the dust. "How's the view from the flank today?" he calls, raising his voice over the noise of the herd. "Dusty," you reply, your voice muffled by your bandana. "Better than drag," he says with a laugh, jerking his thumb backward. "Those poor devils will be coughing dirt for a week. Maybe Cookie can make them soup." You shoot back, your tone dry. Diego chuckles, shaking his head. Cookie would make them dirt soup and call it stew. The brief exchange eases the monotony, but soon you fall silent again, focused on the task. A steer edges too far to the right and you nudge your horse toward it, swinging your rope in a lazy circle. The animal flinches, snorts, and returns to the herd. Small corrections like this prevent bigger problems later. Time passes slowly on the trail. The landscape barely changes. Rolling prairie, grass swaying in the wind, the horizon an endless line that never seems closer. Clouds drift overhead, offering fleeting moments of shade before the sun reclaims the sky. The herd plods onward, step by step, mile by mile, an unstoppable tide of horns and hooves. By mid-morning, your throat is dry despite rationing your canteen. You take a careful sip, swish it around, and swallow, feeling the water cool your parched mouth before the heat steals the relief away. You know better than to drink too much now. The trail boss is warning about no water until sundown rings in your ears. Out here, a man learns quickly that thirst is not just discomfort, it's danger. As the hours drag on, the herd's mood shifts. The animals grow restless, their lowing more frequent, their movements less steady. You stay alert, scanning constantly for signs of trouble. A steer that tosses its head too often, a sudden bunching of cattle, a ripple of unease that could spread into panic. One spark, one loud noise at the wrong moment, and the whole mass could bolt into a stampede. But for now the line holds. Men ride steady at their posts. Horses respond with patience. The herd trudges forward, begrudgingly but obediently. You glance ahead, squinting through the dust. The trail stretches toward the horizon, endless as ever. The day has only begun, and already you feel the weight of it pressing down on your shoulders. Still, there's a grim satisfaction in the routine. Each mile covered is a mile closer to Abilene, closer to payday, closer to the comforts of town life, if only for a brief time. Your gelding snorts, tossing his head as if to remind you that he too bears the burden. You lean forward again, patting his neck. Steady, boy. Just a few more miles. Then a few more after that. Then another 1,000. The prairie swallows your words, but the horse seems to understand. Together, you press on, just one pair in a long line of men and animals bound by dust, sweat, and duty, moving ever northward beneath the unforgiving sun. By late morning, the herd settles into its uneven rhythm. Hooves drumming, horns clashing now and then, dust rising in choking waves. The monotony lulls your senses until something sharp breaks through. A high-pitched bawl, panicked and insistent. You turn your head and spot the problem instantly. A calf, spindly-legged and wild-eyed, has slipped through the press of cattle. It darts sideways, tail high, kicking up dust as it bolts from the herd. Its mother bellows in protest, shoving against the mass, trying to follow. Stray, you shout, wheeling your gelding hard to the right. Your horse lunges forward with practiced eagerness, ears pinned and muscles coiling under the saddle. He knows this game. You lean low, giving him his head, feeling the surge of speed as you cut across open prairie. The calf bounds ahead, zigzagging like a jackrabbit, its cries sharp enough to pierce the thunder of the herd. Behind you, Diego's voice carries faintly through the dust. Catch it, amigo, or we'll be eating veal tonight. The jest sparks a grin even as you focus. The rope at your saddle horn waits, coiled and ready. You tug it free with one hand, swinging it overhead in a widening loop. The calf veers left, almost stumbling, then rights itself and bolts again. The world shrinks to a tunnel. The calf's frantic movements, the sound of your horse's hooves pounding the earth, the feel of the rope humming through your fingers. You gauge the distance, the angle, the calf's next turn. The loop flies, spinning above your head, then drops clean over the animal's neck. The rope snaps taut. The calf bawls louder, jerking against the pole, kicking up dust in a frenzied struggle. Your gelding plants his hooves, muscles straining, holding the line steady. You brace against the saddle horn, leaning back to absorb the shock. The calf bucks, twists, and finally collapses into the grass, panting hard, eyes rolling white. You dismount quickly, knees buckling for a moment under the sudden weight of action. Dust clings to your sweat-slick face, your chest heaves with ragged breaths, but your hands are steady. You grab the rope close to the calf's head, murmuring low to quiet it. The animal fights weakly, then sags in exhausted surrender. Easy now, you whisper. You're going back to mama. With practiced movements, you untangle the rope, giving the calf a firm swat on the haunch. It scrambles to its feet, trembling but upright, and dashes toward the herd, guided by instinct stronger than fear. Within seconds, it disappears into the shifting sea of horns and hides, its mother's frantic lowing replaced by the calmer rhythm of reunion. Diego rides up grinning, his hat pushed back on his head, dust streaking his face. Bueno. You rope like a vaquero, my friend. You swing back into the saddle, settling the coil of rope again on your horn. Just lucky, you reply, though you know luck has little to do with it. Skill, timing, and a steady horse, that's what keeps you alive on the trail. Diego laughs, his teeth flashing white. If it were me, I'd have missed, my horse would have tripped, and the calf would be halfway to Mexico by now. Then Cookie would be boiling its bones for stew. Don't give him ideas, you mutter, and the two of you share a laugh before steering your horses back toward the flank. The trail boss rides past, his eyes sharp, his expression unreadable. He gives a single nod, no words, no praise, just that small acknowledgement. On the trail, such gestures mean more than speeches. You feel a flicker of pride warm your chest. Out here, a cowboy's worth is proven in moments like this. The herd rolls on as if nothing happened, the dust cloud swallowing all evidence of the calf's brief rebellion. But you know better. Every stray chased down, every panic quelled, every mile endured, these small victories stack up. They are the difference between a herd delivered and a herd lost, between men earning their wages and men riding home broke. By the time you settle back into position, the sun has climbed high, and sweat soaks through your shirt. Your horse breathes hard but steady, his ears flicking back as if awaiting your next command. You pat his damp neck, grateful once more for the partnership that keeps you both alive. Good boy, you murmur. Let's hope the rest of them remember to stay put. But you know better than to believe it. On the trail, trouble always waits for its next chance. The afternoon heat presses down like a heavy blanket. the horizon wavering in shimmering waves. Sweat drips from your brow, stinging your eyes despite the bandana pulled up over your nose. The herd plods onward, their hooves stirring dust that clings to your skin like a second coat. You think briefly of Abilene, still weeks away, and push the thought aside. Too far. Too many dangers yet between here and there. A low rumble cuts across the steady rhythm of cattle and hooves. At first you think it's your stomach, growling from jerky and hardtack that never quite satisfy. Then the sound rolls again, deeper, longer. Thunder. You lift your gaze westward. Clouds are building, thick, bruised gray, boiling up from the horizon. The prairie offers no shelter, no trees to break the wind, no ridges to hide behind. When storms come, the trail takes the full brunt of their fury. Diego rides up, squinting into the distance. Tormenta, he mutters. A bad one maybe. The trail boss has seen it too. His horse charges up and down the line, barking orders. Keep him tight. Move steady. We'll try for that low ground yonder before it hits. His voice carries, rough and urgent, cutting through the growing unease. Low ground. Not much of a plan, but it's all you've got. Cattle spook easy at the best of times. Add lightning, rain, and rolling thunder, and you've got the recipe for disaster. A full-on stampede that could scatter 2,000 head across miles of prairie. The wind picks up, hot and restless, tugging at hats and coats. The smell of ozone stings your nose. Horses shift beneath their riders, ears flicking nervously. The cattle feel it too. Their heads lift, tails swish, low rumbles answering the sky's own. You press your heels to your gelding, moving into position along the flank. Dust swirls harder now, whipped sideways by gusts. The clouds bear down, a living wall of darkness racing across the land. The first fat drops of rain hit, splattering against your face and hat brim. Then the sky opens. Sheets of water slash across the drive, instantly turning dust into slick mud. Visibility shrinks to yards, then feet. Lightning forks jagged white across the heavens. Thunder chasing so close behind it shakes the ground. The herd surges, panic rising like floodwater. Longhorns bawl and shove, pressing against each other in terror. You shout, your voice hoarse, trying to steady them, though you know words mean little to frightened cattle. What matters is presence. Riders moving steadily, voices raised in song, the constant reminder that order still exists in chaos. You start to sing, the old tune tumbling rough from your throat. Red River Valley, off-key and cracked but steady. Diego joins in from somewhere to your right, his voice stronger, carrying above the storm. Other riders take up the chorus until the herd is surrounded not just by lightning and thunder but by human voices weaving calm through madness. For a time it works. The cattle surge but do not break. Horses slip and struggle in the mud, but the line holds. You ride with every muscle taut, every sense alive, the storm soaking you to the bone. Then it happens. A bolt of lightning slams into the prairie not 50 yards away, the flash searing white, the crack deafening. The herd explodes. Thousands of hooves pound in unison, a living avalanche of horn and hide. Stampede. Ride, someone shouts, but you're already spurring your gelding forward, heart hammering, the ground quaking beneath the herd's fury. You race alongside the flood, trying to angle them, to bend their mad charge into a circle before they scatter to the ends of the earth. Mud flies, rain blinds, thunder deafens. You ride with reckless desperation, cutting across the herd's flank, waving your hat, yelling, anything to turn them. Your gelding answers, straining every muscle, his hooves slipping dangerously in the muck. A horn grazes your stirrup, nearly unseating you, but you cling tight, refusing to yield. Gradually, painfully, the wild surge begins to bend. Other riders push from the far side, risking life and limb as they dart before massive, charging animals. The stampede curves, widens, then begins to spiral. From chaos comes a ragged order, a swirling circle instead of a headlong flight. Minutes stretch into eternity before the herd finally slows. Exhaustion does what your efforts could not. The cattle pant, sides heaving, eyes rolling, but they are no longer running blind. They mill in a wide, trampled ring, rain still lashing down but panic spent. You slump in the saddle, chest heaving, every muscle trembling from the effort. Around you, other riders emerge from the storm, faces streaked with mud, eyes wide with the knowledge of how close it was. How easily the drive could have ended here in broken bodies and scattered cattle. The trail boss rides up, water streaming from his hat brim. He studies the milling herd, then his men. His expression softens just slightly. "Good work," he says simply and rides on. It's the highest praise you'll get. And in truth, it's enough. You're alive. The herd is intact. And the storm, though still raging, has passed its worst. You reach down to pat your gelding's neck, murmuring thanks. His coat is slick with rain, his sides quiver with exhaustion, but his ears are forward, steady as ever. A partner worth more than gold in times like this. The herd begins to settle, men singing softer now, the storm's fury giving way to steady rain. You circle slowly, watching, waiting, knowing the danger isn't fully gone. A second stampede could spark at any moment. But for now, at least you've survived. Morning arrives slowly, as though the prairie itself is reluctant to wake. The storm finally moved east sometime after midnight, leaving the camp damp, battered, and oddly quiet. A heavy mist clings to the grass, softening the outlines of men and cattle alike. The air smells of wet earth, charred ozone, and damp leather. You rise stiffly from your bedroll, your blanket soaked through despite the oilcloth you'd wrapped around yourself. Your body aches from yesterday's ride, the stampede still burning in your muscles. Every joint feels swollen, every scrape and bruise making itself known now that the danger has passed. The herd survived, though they look ragged and restless. Cattle mill uneasily, still jittery from the night's terror. A few strays bolted too far to recover in the storm's chaos, but the losses are minimal, an outcome many outfits would envy. Cookie, the camp cook, slams a ladle against the rim of his pot. "Hot coffee. Come and get it before it's gone." His voice is as sour as his mood. Storms make cooking near impossible, and last night's stew was little more than beans floating in rainwater. But the promise of hot coffee is enough to pull even the sorest cowboy from his blanket. You join the line, boots squishing in the wet ground. Cookie slaps a dented tin plate into your hands, heaping it with biscuits and what might generously be called gravy. He thrusts a tin cup at you, steaming with coffee so strong it could strip paint. "Looks like horse feed," mutters Tom, the veteran cowboy, eyeing his plate. Cookie glares, his weather-beaten face twisting into a scowl. "If you don't like it, you can try chewing rawhide instead. Won't taste worse and it'll last longer." Despite the sarcasm, the men eat. Hunger doesn't allow much room for criticism. You wolf down the soggy biscuits, grateful for the warmth if not the flavor. The coffee, bitter enough to make your teeth ache, still spreads heat through your chest like a small fire. The trail boss gathers the outfit, his expression grim but steady. "We lost 7 head. Could have been 100. Could have been all. I don't want no complaints. Today we push hard. That storm cost us time." His voice carries the finality of command. No one argues. Cowboys know better than to tempt fate by questioning good fortune. By mid-morning, the herd is moving again, hooves squelching in sodden ground. The prairie glistens under the weak sun, puddles flashing like mirrors. Every step splashes mud. Horses grunt and slip, their riders cursing softly under their breath. Despite the conditions, there's a strange camaraderie in the air. Yesterday's storm forged a bond tighter than whiskey or cards. Men who rarely spoke now share grim smiles, the unspoken acknowledgement of survival. You catch Manuel's eye across the line. He tips his hat, a simple gesture of respect that means more than words. As the day wears on, the sun breaks free of the lingering clouds. Steam rises from cattle and men alike, turning the air into a shimmering haze. Your clothes dry stiff against your skin, every crease filled with dried mud. The smell of wet leather and damp cattle hangs heavy, a perfume only cowboys know. By afternoon, the herd settles into rhythm. The longhorns plod forward, heads low, their earlier panic replaced by weary obedience. The men ride in silence, conserving energy. Even the horses seem subdued, ears flicking lazily instead of twitching with constant tension. Near sundown, the trail boss signals for camp at a grassy rise. The herd spreads out to graze, while men dismount with audible groans. Saddles creak, ropes slap against leather, boots squish in mud. Everyone moves slower than usual, exhaustion dragging at every limb. Cookie surprises you with stew that actually tastes like food. Chunks of beef float among beans and potatoes, and the smell alone lifts spirits. The men eat with unusual cheer, swapping stories about the storm. "I thought lightning was fixing to split me in half," says one young hand wide-eyed. "Horse near jumped out from under me." Tom shakes his head deadpan. "Kid, if lightning wanted you, it'd have fried you like bacon. Only reason you're still flapping your gums is 'cause the storm had better taste." Laughter ripples through the circle, weary but genuine. Even Cookie cracks the ghost of a smile, though he quickly hides it behind his coffee pot. Night comes cool and damp but peaceful. No thunder, no stampedes, just the soft sounds of cattle cropping grass and the occasional low whinny of horses. You stretch out beneath the stars, grateful for the quiet. The storm's chaos feels both like yesterday and a lifetime ago. As your eyelids grow heavy, you think of the days still ahead. More rivers, more storms, more dangers waiting on the open trail. But for tonight at least you've earned rest. The sky is clear, the herd is safe, and the prairie, vast and endless, seems for a rare moment calm. You drift into sleep with the faint echo of laughter still hanging in the air, a reminder that even in the hardest life, there's room for small comforts. The next morning dawns bright and deceptively cheerful, the prairie washed clean by the storm. The air feels fresh, heavy with the scent of wet grass and mud. For a few moments, as you pull on your stiff boots and shake out your damp blanket, you almost forget the exhaustion stamped into your bones. Almost. The trail boss wastes no time. "We've got miles to make up," he calls, his voice carrying across camp. "Eat quick, saddle up, move out." No cowboy needs reminding. Storm delays are costly, and the cattle won't sell themselves in Abilene. Cookie ladles out a breakfast of beans and bacon, with biscuits so hard you half suspect he baked them on a horseshoe. Tom, already chewing, mutters, "Careful with your teeth, boys." Cookie's biscuits will loosen him quicker than a saloon brawl. A ripple of chuckles moves through the line, even Cookie himself twitching one corner of his mouth before snapping, "Eat faster, or I'll serve 'em raw tomorrow." The herd moves out under a clear sky. Dust rises again, the brief reprieve of rain already forgotten. By midday the sun beats down mercilessly. The ground, still soft from yesterday, drags at hooves and boots alike. Horses strain, cattle plod, and men grit their teeth against fatigue. As a flank rider, you spend your day chasing strays, coaxing stubborn yearlings back into line, and singing just loudly enough to keep the herd steady. Your throat still tastes of dust despite every swallow of water. The herd stretches for nearly a mile, a slow-moving river of horns and hide shimmering in the heat. Hours pass in monotony, broken only by sudden bursts of activity. A startled cow breaks into a run, and you're spurring your horse before you can think, rope coiling in your hands, heart hammering as you cut it off. By now, the rhythm of pursuit feels almost second nature. The lean, dangerous grace of your gelding responding instantly to every shift of weight and touch of rein. Each success is brief, the satisfaction fading as quickly as it came, replaced by the endless plod of dust and hooves. Mid-afternoon brings the familiar ache of saddle wear. Your thighs burn, your back screams, your hands raw from rope and reins. The veteran Tom rides nearby, his face unreadable under the brim of his hat. He catches your eye and grins wryly. "Still think cowboying is a grand adventure?" he asks, his voice dry as trail dust. "Grand's one word for it," you answer, managing a half smile. Tom chuckles. "Don't worry, kid. By the time you're my age, you'll have no teeth, no money, and no patience, but you'll have stories. Course, half the boys won't believe him, and the other half will be too drunk to care. It's gallows humor, but it makes the ride feel a little lighter. On the trail, sometimes laughter is the only shield against the endless grind. As the day drags on, the land begins to change. Gentle rises roll across the prairie, offering a rare variation from the flat monotony. Clumps of cottonwoods mark hidden creeks, their green leaves bright against the endless grass. The cattle respond, quickening their pace as if they sense water ahead. The herd bunches, eager, and the boss signals the point riders to guide them carefully. Too much excitement, and the cattle could trample themselves in their rush. You ride hard to help hold the line, shouting and swinging your rope overhead. Dust fills your eyes, your throat burns, but the herd steadies under the combined effort. At last they reach the creek, plunging in with loud splashes, drinking greedily. The noise of 2,000 animals quenching their thirst is deafening, like a river that has suddenly come to life. The men take turns refilling canteens and splashing water on their faces. The relief is brief but welcome. You kneel, scoop handfuls of cool water over your head, and sigh as the dust washes away. For a moment, you feel human again instead of half animal, half machine. Camp that night sits beside the creek, a luxury rare enough to lift spirits. The cattle, sated and calm, bed down easily. The men eat another round of beans and salt pork, the flavor almost tolerable when hunger gnaws so deep. Cookie stew is thin, but tonight no one complains. Around the fire, conversation drifts lazily. Stories of past drives, of towns visited, of scrapes survived. Diego recounts the time a steer chased him into a pond, hat and all, while Tom insists he once outran a twister on horseback. No one quite believes him, but the laughter eases the weight of another long day. Later, lying beneath the stars, you reflect on the strange rhythm of the trail. Days blur together, each one a test of endurance, punctuated by sudden, heart-pounding moments of danger. Yet somehow it feels right. Not easy, not comfortable, but honest. Work and reward, sweat and survival. No illusions, no games. Tomorrow there will be more dust, more strays, more miles. But tonight, with your horse cropping grass nearby and the herd quiet in the dark, you let yourself relax. The prairie stretches endless above you, the stars so sharp they seem close enough to pluck from the sky. Your eyelids grow heavy. Sleep comes quickly, dragging you down into the familiar cycle of exhaustion and rest. Another day is done, another mile behind you, another step closer to Abilene. By now the days have melted together, dust, cattle, sore muscles, repeat. But on this morning something feels different. Not because the herd behaves any better, longhorns still wander like schoolboys skipping church, but because the men, worn raw by weeks of hardship, finally loosen their tongues. The prairie, endless and monotonous, has a way of demanding entertainment, and cowboys provide it the only way they know how: banter. It begins at breakfast. Cookie slaps plates of beans and biscuits down so hard you'd think he's trying to shoo flies. One of the younger hands, a freckled boy named Sam, peers at the biscuits suspiciously. "Hey Cookie, these supposed to be eaten, or should we use 'em to patch the wagon wheels?" The whole camp chuckles. Cookie, never one to miss a retort, shoots back, "Don't matter none. You'll break your teeth either way." He narrows his eyes. "Besides, I only burn food when it's for folks who complain too much." Sam wisely shuts his mouth, but the laughter lingers. On the trail, humor takes the edge off monotony. Tom, the veteran, tells stories in his dry, matter-of-fact drawl. "Back in '68, he begins, "I rode for an outfit so cheap they used a mule instead of a chuck wagon. Mule's name was Samson. Carried all the pots, pans, and a sack of flour. Well, one day Samson decided he was done being a cook's helper. Wandered into the creek, sat down right in the middle and wouldn't budge. Took 6 men and half a bag of sugar cubes to coax him out. By then, the flour was soaked and we had pancakes for 3 weeks straight. Pancakes so tough you had to sharpen your knife before cutting them." The men howl. Even Diego doubles over, sombrero tipping forward as he slaps his thigh. "Pancakes sharper than my spurs, eh?" he teases. As the herd plods onward, the jokes ripple down the line. Cowboys invent contests out of thin air. Who can toss a rope the farthest, who can whistle loudest to steer a stubborn yearling. One young hand tries to whistle, but only manages a pitiful squeak that sends his horse sidestepping in alarm. The laughter that follows nearly drowns out the lowing cattle. Still, work never disappears. Mid-morning, a steer bolts, charging through the grass like it's got business in Kansas all on its own. You spur your gelding forward, rope ready. Tom rides alongside shouting, "Catch him quick, or Cookie'll have to serve us mud stew tonight." Together, you turn the animal back, the chase exhilarating even through your aches. The trail boss pretends not to notice the chatter, but now and then you catch the ghost of a smile beneath his stern mustache. He knows better than anyone. A crew that laughs together rides better, fights harder, and survives longer. By late afternoon, the sun scorches again, making the prairie shimmer like molten glass. Sweat stings your eyes, your shirt clings like a second skin. Someone starts singing off-key and loud. Musical note, "Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam." Musical note. The rest groan, but then one by one voices join. Before long, a ragged choir of dusty, sunburned cowboys bellows the tune, some purposely mangling the lyrics just for laughs. "Where the deer and the cantaloupe play." "Don't you mean antelope?" "Not if Cookie's cooking him." The laughter bubbles up again, rolling down the line of riders. For a few minutes, the endless miles don't seem so heavy. Camp that night finds the men in rare good spirits. Cookie ladles out stew with extra chunks of beef, either generosity or an accident, no one's sure. Sam eyes his plate, mock serious. Careful, boys. If Cookie starts feeding us decent, he might be hiding something. Diego grins. See, maybe he poisoned it so we stop complaining. Cookie brandishes his ladle like a weapon. Eat it or wear it, your choice. The stew tastes fine, and no one dares push their luck further. Bellies full, the men linger by the fire, swapping stories that grow taller with each retelling. Tom swears he once roped a steer blindfolded. Diego insists he outran a mountain lion. Sam claims he can drink 3 cups of Cookie's coffee without blinking. That last one earns hoots of disbelief. No man alive has proven immune to Cookie's black brew. As the stars spread across the sky, you lean back against your saddle, listening to the banter weave with the lowing cattle. The prairie feels less empty tonight, filled instead with the warmth of camaraderie. Hardships remain, the aches, the dust, the endless miles, but laughter makes them lighter, binding the outfit tighter than rope ever could. And tomorrow there will be more stories, more contests, more humor to carry you another mile closer to Abilene. The herd moves steady the next morning, the longhorns plodding along as if they too are weary of endless miles. The cowboys, however, seem unusually chipper. Perhaps last night's laughter worked its magic, or perhaps they're just delirious from lack of sleep. As dawn stretches over the prairie, Cookie's voice cuts through the crisp air. Coffee's hot, or at least hotter than the river. Sam, rubbing sleep from his eyes, mutters, "Hot's not the word I'd use. More like dangerous." Tom, the veteran, smirks. Dangerous? Boy, Cookie's coffee is what keeps us alive. Kills anything that tries to grow in our stomachs. He takes a swig, grimaces and adds, and sometimes kills us too. The men chuckle, even Cookie, though he hides it behind a scowl as he bangs lids on the pots. Later that morning, while the herd trundles forward, a pack of coyotes appears on the ridge, their sharp yips drifting downwind. Diego eyes them warily. They wait for us to drop a sick steer, he says, squinting beneath his sombrero. Or a sick cowboy, Sam adds. You volunteering? Diego fires back. The laughter that follows is enough to send the coyotes slinking off, tails tucked, probably deciding there's easier prey than a band of half-mad cowboys. By midday the heat presses down like a weight. Horses droop, cattle low in protest, and even the grasshoppers seem too tired to leap. That's when Manuel decides to liven things up. He balances upright in his saddle, arms stretched wide as if daring the prairie itself. Careful, Tom calls. Fall off and we'll let the coyotes have you. But Manuel only grins, dropping back into his seat with a flourish that earns scattered applause. Even the cattle need a show sometimes, he says. The herd doesn't look impressed, but the men grin, grateful for any distraction. That evening, campfire talk turns to practical jokes. Always a dangerous subject among men with too much energy and too few outlets. Sam recalls a time he tied rattlesnake rattles to a fellow hand's saddle, so every step sounded like doom itself. Tom shakes his head. And how many teeth did you lose after that? Only one, Sam admits sheepishly, and the fire erupts in laughter. Not to be outdone, Diego shares a tale about slipping chili peppers into another cowboy's tobacco pouch. One puff and he was running circles around the herd, hollering like he'd seen the devil himself. Even the trail boss, listening from the edge of the firelight, can't suppress a chuckle at that one. The laughter continues until Cookie stomps out of the shadows, wielding his ladle like a weapon. Any of you try pranks on me, I'll feed you bean stew for a month straight. No meat. Not even a scrap of bacon. A collective groan rises from the men. That's a fate worse than coyotes. When the camp finally quiets, you take your turn at night watch. The prairie is hushed, stars glittering like shards of broken glass scattered across the sky. You hum softly to the herd, the way you've done countless nights before. But somewhere out in the dark, a lone coyote answers with a long, mournful howl. Sam, riding the next circuit, calls out from the shadows. Sounds like Cookie's coffee made it to the coyotes. You nearly fall out of the saddle laughing, and the cattle, soothed by the sound of your voices, settle deeper into the grass. For all its hardships, the trail has found its rhythm now. And woven into that rhythm, like the steady beat of hooves on dry earth, is laughter, sometimes sharp as barbed wire, sometimes soft as a coyote's cry, but always there, keeping spirits alive against the vast emptiness of the prairie. The morning starts calm, the prairie painted gold by a rising sun. The cattle graze lazily before the trail boss signals the drive onward. For a while, it seems like just another day, dust, sweat, and the steady plod of longhorn hooves. But cattle drives have a way of turning peace into chaos in the blink of an eye. It begins with a jackrabbit. Of all things, a tiny long-eared rabbit leaps from the grass right under the nose of a nervous steer. The steer bellows, panics, and bolts forward. In an instant, others follow. The rumble builds like thunder rolling across the prairie. Stampede. You dig heels into your horse, yelling, swinging wide to try and push the leaders into a curve. Tom rides beside you, hollering over the roar, "Blame Cookie's beans for this one." Dust blinds your eyes, cattle surge like a river of horns and muscle. But slowly, with every shouted command and sharp turn of horse and rope, the outfit manages to bend the herd into a wide circle. The stampede slows, animals heaving, eyes rolling before finally settling. The earth still trembles beneath them, but disaster is averted. Diego wipes his brow, streaking mud and sweat across his face. "One rabbit," he mutters, shaking his head. "Out of all this land, it had to run here." The men laugh, part relief, part disbelief. As the herd calms, the day brings smaller mishaps that keep spirits high. Manuel, usually as sure in the saddle as any man alive, dozes during a lull. His hat slips forward, spooking his horse, which sidesteps sharply. Manuel wakes with a yelp, arms flailing, and barely keeps from tumbling into the dust. "Nice nap," Diego calls. "Maybe next time, try a bed instead of a moving horse." The men howl, and Manuel tips his hat low to hide his grin. Later, as the sun blazes overhead, a sudden gust of wind snatches Tom's old Stetson clean off his head. Before he can grab it, the hat tumbles across the prairie like it's chasing its own freedom. Without hesitation, Tom spurs his horse in hot pursuit. What follows is less cowboy grit than sheer comedy. Tom zigzagging after the runaway hat, horse snorting with every sharp turn, while the rest of the outfit whoops encouragement. The hat flips, rolls, and flutters just out of reach until finally Tom leans low from the saddle, snags it mid-flight, and holds it high like a trophy. "Worth more than gold," he proclaims, dust coating his teeth in a triumphant grin. "More like worth a bath," Sam calls. "That thing smells worse than Cookie's socks." The laughter nearly drowns out the cattle's lowing. Camp that night is alive with retellings of the day's events. The rabbit, Manuel's nap, Tom's hat chase. Each story grows taller with every telling. By the time Diego recounts it, the jackrabbit is the size of a wolf. Manuel rode his horse backward for a mile, and Tom's hat flew clear to Kansas before he caught it. Even the trail boss, usually all business, shakes his head with a rare smile. As long as the cattle made it, boys, you can chase rabbits and hats all you want. Around the fire, Cookie ladles stew with mock severity. "And if any of you lose your britches tomorrow, don't expect me to sew 'em back." Sam grins. "Don't worry, Cookie. Your coffee's strong enough to stitch leather by itself." Groans and laughter ripple through the camp. That night, as you roll into your blankets, the memory of chaos blends with humor. The stampede could have cost lives and cattle, but instead, it ended in laughter, tall tales, and the strange relief that comes only when danger passes. Under the endless prairie stars, the trail feels lighter. Hardship remains, but humor makes it bearable, turning fear into stories and near misses into legends. Tomorrow may bring more dust, more miles, even more danger. But tonight, the campfire glows with camaraderie, and the laughter echoes far into the dark. The next day dawns calm, the prairie shimmering under a pink horizon. The cattle move easy, perhaps worn out from yesterday's stampede. Spirits in the outfit are high, but not because of the herd. No, it's because everyone knows Cookie's coffee is brewing. You'd think the men would dread it, thick as tar, bitter as snake venom, but it's become a strange sort of tradition. Each morning, someone volunteers, or gets volunteered, to test it first. Today, poor Sam draws the short straw. The camp gathers like spectators at a prize fight. Cookie ladles out a steaming cup, the liquid so dark it seems to swallow the morning light. Sam holds it like it's dynamite with a burning fuse. Drink up, boy, Tom drawls. If it don't kill you, it'll at least put hair on your chest. Sam takes a gulp. His face contorts instantly, eyes bulging, cheeks puckering like he just bit into a lemon dipped in gunpowder. He gasps, coughs, and sputters. Good Lord, Cookie. What did you brew this with? Horseshoes and axle grease. The men roar with laughter, even Cookie, though he tries to hide it behind his ladle. That there's cowboy coffee, he says proudly. Strong enough to put iron in your blood and keep coyotes at bay. Or scare 'em clear to Mexico, Diego mutters, sending another ripple of chuckles through the camp. But Cookie's concoction isn't done causing trouble. Later that morning, Manuel takes his turn at the pot, pouring himself a generous cup. He insists he can handle it. After all, he's survived trail beans, blizzards, and stampedes. But halfway through his drink, his horse sneezes so violently at the smell that it nearly throws him into the dust. That's it, Tom declares, shaking his head. Even the animals know better. The herd moves steady that day, the memory of the rabbit stampede still fresh in their minds. But the cowboys can't resist turning everything into a joke. When a steer lingers too long at the edge of the drive, Sam yells, "Careful, boy. Don't let Cookie rope you, he'll turn you into coffee grounds next." By afternoon, the prairie heat is relentless. Shirts stick, dust clings, and tempers threaten to fray. That's when Diego decides to liven things up. He pulls his hat low, strikes a dramatic pose in the saddle, and announces, "Gentlemen, I will now perform the impossible, ride through this heat without sweating." Of course, within 5 minutes, sweat streams down his face like rain. The men howl. Diego tips his hat with a flourish. And that, amigos, is why you never trust a vaquero with stage tricks. The laughter cuts the dust, the monotony, the aches. Even the trail boss, riding ahead, seems less stern, though he still pretends not to listen. That night at camp, Cookie serves beans with a side of his infamous brew. No one complains, at least not seriously. In fact, the men lean into the tradition now, trading jokes about what Cookie might be hiding in the pot. Old saddle leather. Rusty nails. Buffalo sweat. Careful, Tom says, stirring his cup with a stick. If you insult it too much, the coffee might get offended and walk off on its own. The men howl again, the sound rolling across the prairie louder than coyotes. As the fire burns low, you settle back on your saddle, the stars wheeling above. The trail is long, the work endless, but laughter fills the spaces between hardship. Cookie's coffee, horrid though it is, has become more than a drink. It's a symbol. A daily reminder that cowboys can face dust, danger, and exhaustion, so long as they face it together, with humor as strong as any brew. Tomorrow the drive will bring new trials. Maybe another storm, maybe another runaway steer. But tonight, the worst trouble is a cup of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. And somehow that feels like victory. By the 14th week on the trail, the sky finally shifts. Dark clouds roll in from the west, heavy and low, promising rain. Cowboys glance upward, hats pulled lower, each man silently calculating how soaked he's about to get. Could be worse, Tom mutters, tightening his slicker. At least it ain't snow. Diego snorts. Give it time, viejo. This is the trail. If we ride long enough, we'll get snow, hail, and maybe a hurricane too. The first drops fall fat and cold, quickly turning into sheets. Within minutes, the prairie becomes a sea of mud. Horses slog, boots squelch, and cattle bawl in protest. It's miserable, except misery has a funny way of turning into comedy among trail hands. Take Sam, for instance. He tries to guide a stubborn steer through the muck, spurring his horse with all the seriousness of a general leading a charge. Then the steer slips. Its legs splay in 4 directions, eyes wide, bellowing like it's just seen the devil himself. Sam, caught off guard, leans too far forward and splat, face first into the mud. The outfit howls. Even the trail boss, usually stone-faced, shakes his head with the hint of a smile. Sam surfaces spitting mud, his freckled face camouflaged so well he looks like a walking mud puddle. "Don't laugh too hard," he warns, wiping muck from his eyes. "This steer just taught me how to swim without water." "Swim?" Diego cackles. "Looked more like you were drowning in pudding." By afternoon, everyone's wet through, boots sloshing, saddles squeaking like old doors. The cattle are cranky, slipping in the mud, horns knocking together as they stumble forward. Cowboys take turns pulling each other upright when one horse or another loses footing. Manuel earns the loudest laugh when his gelding slips sideways, sending him sliding down a mud-slick slope on his back like a boy on a winter sled. He comes to rest at the bottom, hat gone, pride bruised. Diego leans over his saddle, shouting down, "Olé! A fine performance, senor. 10 out of 10 for style." Manuel groans but tips his hand in mock salute. The worst of the storm passes by evening, leaving the outfit soggy but alive. The cattle finally settle in a patch of half-dry grass, their flanks streaked with mud. Cowboys drag themselves back to camp, dripping like river rats. Cookie greets them with his usual scowl. "Dinner's beans. And if you don't like 'em, you can lick the mud off your boots instead." Sam's still caked in brown grins. "Might taste better than your beans, Cookie." That earns him a ladle waved menacingly in his direction, but also another round of laughter that warms the camp more than the fire. Later, when the men finally peel off wet clothes and gather around the flames, the day's disasters turn into tall tales. Diego swears the slippery steer had the eyes of a demon and nearly carried Sam 3 miles on its back. Tom insists Manuel's mudslide should be recorded in cowboy history. By the time the stories circle back around, the rain has stopped, stars peek through ragged clouds, and the prairie smells clean, fresh, alive. Clothes will dry, mud will flake, and tomorrow will bring more dust, more aches, maybe even another storm. But tonight, laughter makes the hardships easier to swallow than Cookie's beans. The cowboys lean back, sore and soaked but smiling, the memory of slippery steers and muddy pratfalls binding them tighter than rope. And as you drift into sleep, you realize, out here, humor is more than a distraction. It's survival. The storm has passed, leaving the prairie washed clean. Puddles sparkle in the dawn light, and the cattle move with unusual calm, grateful for grass softened by rain. The cowboys, however, are less grateful. Wet boots and stiff saddles make every mile feel like 2. To keep spirits alive, Diego decides the outfit needs music. He pulls out a battered harmonica, its surface dented and dulled by years of trail dust. With a grin, he belts out a tune somewhere between a Mexican folk song and a wheezy goose call. Tom groans. "Diego, that ain't music. That's the sound of Cookie's stew trying to escape." The men laugh, but Diego keeps playing, louder this time, his horse stepping in rhythm as if it enjoys the racket. Soon others join in. Sam starts singing, badly, his voice cracking like a boys in church choir. Manuel tries to whistle along but only produces something that spooks a steer into a sideways trot. You find yourself humming just to keep the mess halfway tolerable. That's when Samson, the pack mule, adds his own contribution. With perfect timing, he lets out a long, mournful bray, ears twitching, mouth stretched wide. The sound is so drawn out and pitiful that every man bursts out laughing. "See," Diego declares, still tooting away. "Even the mule has soul." "More soul than you," Tom shoots back. By midday, the prairie serenade has become a running joke. Cowboys belt out half-remembered songs, some swapping lyrics to poke fun at each other. Sam croons about Manuel's mudslide, Diego sings about Tom's runaway hat, and before long the cattle seem calmer, lulled by the odd symphony of voices, harmonica, and mule. The trail boss pretends not to hear, but when the harmonica squeals too sharply, even he mutters, "If that mule starts dancing, I'm quitting it." The laughter is still buzzing when trouble strikes. A yearling breaks from the herd, darting into a patch of scrub. You spur your horse forward, rope swinging, only to hear Diego holler, "Careful! If the mule sings again, that steer'll faint dead away." Despite the chase, you grin. Rope snaps tight, steer secured, crisis over. Humor makes the danger lighter, even when sweat stings your eyes and your horse blows hard beneath you. That night, camp feels almost festive. Cookie, perhaps softened by the music, serves biscuits not entirely blackened on the bottom. Sam takes a bite and raises his cup in mock toast. To Diego and Samson, the only band on the trail that can make Cookie's food taste better. Diego bows dramatically and the mule brays again as if on cue. The men howl until tears cut streaks through their trail dust. Later, when the fire burns low, Diego picks a softer tune, almost sweet despite the harmonica's flaws. The sound drifts across the prairie, mingling with the cattle's lowing and the distant yip of coyotes. The laughter fades into a quiet contentment, each man reminded that music, even badly played, can soothe the raw edges of trail life. You roll into your blankets, saddle for a pillow, stars bright overhead. Your body aches, but your mind drifts easy, lulled by the memory of cowboys singing, a mule braying like an opera star, and the fragile joy found in unlikely places. Tomorrow there will be dust again, maybe more storms, maybe worse dangers. But tonight, the prairie itself seems to hum with laughter, music, and the faint, ridiculous echo of a mule that thinks he can sing. The sun beats down relentless as the herd pushes north, hooves drumming, dust swirling like a second sky. By mid-afternoon, even the cattle look bored, their heads drooping, tails swishing lazily at flies. Cowboys too sag in their saddles. The trail has its rhythms, long stretches of monotony punctuated by bursts of chaos. Today it's the monotony that gnaws at men's nerves. "Boys," Diego calls from his horse, tipping his hat low against the sun. "I say we need a game before we all turn to statues." "Game?" Tom grunts. "What kind of game you play on horseback with 2,000 head of cattle?" Diego grins, producing a worn deck of cards from his saddlebag. "Poker amigo. Prairie poker. Only rules, no cheatin', no fallin', off your horse." The men howl at the absurdity, but within minutes, half the outfit gathers reins to reins, balancing cards on saddle horns, hats, and even boots. Horses snort in confusion as their riders shuffle, deal, and bluff in the middle of a moving herd. Sam squints at his hand, trying to hold 5 cards against the wind. "How do you keep your horse from peeking?" he demands. "Mine's honest," Diego replies smoothly. "Unlike you, gringo." Laughter rolls down the line. Bets are called, nothing more than buttons, tobacco, and promises of chores owed. The cattle, unaware, keep trudging north while their drovers gamble like kings on parade. Trouble comes as it always does. A gust of wind snatches Tom's cards clean out of his hand, scattering them across the prairie like confetti. He curses loud enough to startle 3 steers. "There goes my full house," he bellows, spurring after the cards. The men howl. Diego tips his hat back, smug. "Guess the prairie didn't like your bluff." But Tom returns triumphant, clutching 1 dirt street dace. "That's enough to beat you, Diego." By the time the trail boss rides up, the game is chaos. Cards flying, horses weaving, men shouting over each other. He reins in, frowning. "What in blazes are you fools doing?" "Bond in, boss," Sam answers quick, holding his cards upside down without noticing. "Building morale." The trail boss just shakes his head. "Long as the cattle don't stampede, play all the fool games you want." Then, almost grudgingly, he adds, "But deal me in tonight. Proper table." That earns a cheer louder than a herd crossing. When camp comes, the game resumes around the fire. Cookie provides the table, an upturned barrel, and the men ante up with coins, knives, and one highly questionable promise from Diego to sing for free at your funeral. Hands fly, tempers rise, and laughter bursts with every ridiculous bluff. Sam bets his spare socks, Manuel raises with a half-empty pouch of tobacco, and Tom swears Diego's harmonica counts as negative money. Cookie, watching from the shadows, finally joins with his own stake, a tin of coffee. The men gasp, it's worth more than gold on the trail. "Best not lose that Cookie," Tom warns. "Without your poison brew, we'd never wake up again." By night's end, the pot is won by Manuel, who somehow cobbles together a straight flush while half asleep. He raises his winnings high, 2 coins, a knife, 1 sock, and Cookie's precious tin. The men cheer, then groan when Manuel solemnly announces, "I'll use it all to buy you gentlemen more of Cookie's coffee." The chorus of mock despair shakes the stars. Later, when the fire dies down, you roll into your blanket with a smile aching your jaw. The herd may be endless, the work grueling, but tonight the prairie felt like a saloon without walls, filled with jokes, rivalry, and the warmth of camaraderie. The cattle may be the reason for the drive, but the laughter, that's what keeps the men moving forward. The prairie wakes quiet, dew clinging to grass, cattle grazing peacefully. For once, the morning feels almost civilized. Cookie's coffee steams, men stretch stiff backs, and even the horses seem less fidgety. But peace never lasts long on a drive. It starts when Sam, ever eager to impress, decides to serenade the herd. He clears his throat dramatically and belts out, "Oh, bury me not, on the lone prairie." The note wobbles like a wagon on broken wheels. Several cattle lift their heads, staring in mild alarm. Diego slaps his knee. "Careful, Chico. You sing like that and the herd'll bury you." The men laugh, but Sam keeps going louder this time. By the second verse, Tom joins in with a deep, gravelly harmony, and soon the whole outfit is croaking along. It's less choir, more barnyard chorus, voices cracking, drifting off-key, laughter bursting between lines. Even the cattle seem entertained. Their lowing mingles with the men singing, creating a bizarre duet of cowboy and cow. By mid-morning, the impromptu choir has turned into competition. Diego insists his harmonica adds class to the performance, though the squeals sound like a goose stuck in a fence. Manuel whistles counter-melodies, his horse flicking its ears in disapproval. When a pack of coyotes appears on the ridge, the men seize the chance to serenade them too. "Sing him off, boys," Tom bellows. So the cowboys belt out a tune so dreadful, so hilariously out of tune, that the coyotes yip once and scatter back into the grass. "That's it," Diego shouts between laughs. "Forget guns, we'll defend the herd with music." "Music?" Sam gasps, clutching his stomach. Sounded more like Cookie's pots falling down the chuck wagon. The laughter rolls across the prairie louder than the herd itself. But the day still has work. A small group of cattle breaks from the line, wandering toward a patch of greener grass. You spur forward, rope ready, while Sam follows behind, still humming his off-key tune. The stray cattle resist, but eventually you turn them back. When you rejoin the outfit, Sam announces proudly, "See, they just needed a lullaby." "Lullaby?" Diego scoffs. "They were running away from you, Chico." The men nearly fall out of their saddles laughing. By evening, the outfit is exhausted but buzzing with the day's antics. Cookie serves beans, grumbling when the men demand he sing a verse. "Only thing I sing is curses," he growls, but the cowboys cheer anyway, inventing verses about Cookie's coffee and Manuel's mudslide until the whole camp is roaring. The trail boss, seated at the edge of the firelight, finally raises his tin cup. "You boys are the worst singers west of the Mississippi," he says flatly. Then after a pause, "But you're the best damn crew I ever drove." The camp quiets at that, pride softening the laughter. Cowboys don't need fancy speeches. Simple words mean more than gold when spoken by a boss who rarely compliments. That night, as you lie beneath the stars, the echoes of the cowboy choir still buzz in your ears. The prairie feels less lonely, the hardships lighter, because laughter has turned into music. And music, however ragged, has turned into memory. Tomorrow the trail will stretch endless again. But tonight, you drift off smiling, half expecting coyotes to howl a harmony. By the 18th week on the trail, monotony weighs heavy. The herd plods along, heads low, tails swishing lazily. Cowboys slump in their saddles, eyes half-lidded from long days under the sun. It's the kind of stretch where boredom itself feels like the enemy. Which is exactly when Diego decides the outfit needs excitement. At supper, as Cookie dishes out beans and biscuits, Diego sidles up to Sam's plate. With a sly grin, he slips a few dried chili peppers, red as fire, sharp as barbed wire, into the beans. Then he retreats, whistling innocently as if nothing's amiss. The men gather, eating with the weary silence of men too tired to talk. Until Sam takes his first bite. For a moment all is still. Then his eyes widen. His face turns crimson. He gasps like a fish hauled from the river. "Sweet mother of mercy," he sputters, fanning his mouth. "Cookie, what did you put in this stew? Gunpowder? Lava?" The camp erupts. Cowboys slap their knees, nearly falling off logs with laughter. Diego howls so hard he nearly chokes on his own beans. Sam leaps to his feet, waving his hat like a man trying to beat back flames. He gulps water from his canteen, but it only seems to spread the fire. Desperate, he grabs a biscuit and crams it into his mouth, only to discover Cookie baked it rock hard. The sight of him gnawing furiously on the brick-like bread sends the men into fresh peals of laughter. "You all right, Chico?" Manuel manages between chuckles. "Or should we fetch the river for you?" Sam glares, cheeks puffed, but he can't speak, too busy panting like a winded horse. Even the trail boss cracks a smile, though he hides it behind his tin cup. "You'll live," he says gruffly, "and maybe learn to chew before you swallow." That night, the tale grows taller with every retelling. By the time Tom recounts it, Sam's face was redder than a prairie sunset, and by Diego's version, steam came out his ears like a locomotive. The legend of Sam and the fire beans cements itself into trail lore, joining the stories of Manuel's mudslide and Tom's runaway hat. But the comedy doesn't end there. The next morning, Sam plots revenge. At dawn, while Diego snores, Sam sneaks over and ties a scrap of tin to Diego's horse's tail. When the outfit sets out, the tin clatters with every step, spooking the horse into a ridiculous sideways trot. Diego flails in the saddle, cursing in Spanish while the men howl behind him. "Looks like your horse has got rhythm," Tom shouts. Diego finally dismounts, red-faced, to rip the tin free. He shoots Sam a glare hot enough to rival the chili peppers, but the corners of his mouth twitch with suppressed laughter. By midday, peace is restored, at least until Cookie announces lunch is beans. The groans are loud enough to startle the herd. "No peppers this time," Cookie growls. Then after a beat he adds, "unless someone deserves them." The men laugh, though Sam eyes his plate with deep suspicion. That night, as the herd beds down under a sky thick with stars, you lean back against your saddle, still grinning at the day's antics. The trail has its dangers, stampedes, storms, swollen rivers, but it's the laughter that carries men through. Tomorrow there might be rustlers or rain or worse. But tonight, the memory of Sam's fiery supper and Diego's dancing horse lingers, proof that even misery can be turned into comedy when shared among cowboys. The 19th week brings a restless air. The herd moves edgy, heads tossing more than usual, hooves drumming with impatience. Cowboys exchange glances. They've seen this before. Trouble's near. That night, while the cattle settle under a rising moon, you take second watch. The prairie is quiet except for the low breathing of 2,000 steers. Then, a sound. Hoofbeats faint but wrong. Not the shuffle of grazing cattle, but the quick rhythm of mounted men. You stiffen. Rustlers. You whistle sharp, the signal passed down the line. Within moments, shadows rise from bedrolls. Cowboys mount quick, revolvers at their sides. The rustlers push in from the east, a half-dozen figures trying to scatter the herd into chaos. The trail boss's voice cuts through the dark like a whip. "Keep the herd tight. Don't let him split." The outfit moves fast, riding the perimeter, shouting, firing warning shots into the sky. Cattle bawl, hooves thunder, panic rippling like wildfire. In the midst of danger, humor still sparks. As Diego charges past, firing into the air, he yells, "Banditos! They came for cattle but will leave with lead." Tom, ever dry, shouts back, "Save your poetry for the saloon, Diego, just keep him moving." Amid the chaos, a steer bolts toward the rustlers. Sam, spurring hard, ropes at mid-gallop, but his loop also snags one of the bandits by the arm. The rustler curses, topples clean out of his saddle, and lands flat in the dust. The men laugh even as bullets crack the air. "Nice catch," Manuel hollers. "Too bad you can't sell him at the stockyard." The fight is short but fierce. Outnumbered and outgunned, the rustlers retreat, hooves pounding back into the darkness. A few cattle stray, but most of the herd holds. The danger passes. Breathing hard, you ride back into camp. The fire has flared, throwing light on mud-streaked faces and grinning mouths. Relief mingles with exhaustion. Sam, still holding his rope, drags the captured rustler into the circle. The man curses, spitting dust, but the outfit hoots and hollers at the sight. "Well, Cookie," Diego says, "guess we finally found you a dinner guest." The laughter rolls, cutting the tension sharp as a knife. The trail boss, stern as always, orders the man tied and turned over at the next town. But even he can't hide the flicker of pride in his eyes. The outfit held, the herd stood, and the night belongs to the cowboys once again. By dawn, the cattle graze calm as if nothing happened. But around the fire, the jokes fly like bullets. Sam claims he meant to rope the rustler. Diego insists he scared 3 men off just by singing. Tom swears Cookie's coffee would have done the job faster than revolvers. The legend of the Night of Rustlers is born. Half danger, half comedy, all cowboy truth. As the sun rises, you sip bitter coffee, sore and weary but grinning. The herd lives, the men live, and another chapter is written in the long, dusty story of the trail. The herd moves under a sky too quiet, too still. By late afternoon, a wall of black clouds builds on the western horizon. Every man notices, but no one speaks until the first low rumble shakes the air. "Storm's comin'," the trail boss growls. "Big one. Get the herd tight and pray we don't stampede." The cattle sense it too, restless, hooves shifting nervously. Cowboys circle, trying to steady them with calm voices and slow movements. But when the first bolt of lightning cracks across the sky, splitting the darkness like a whip of fire, the longhorns bawl in terror. Rain hammers down, cold and blinding. Thunder rolls, shaking the very ground. The herd surges, panic spreading like sparks through dry grass. "Hold 'em, boys," the trail boss roars. You spur into motion, horse leaping forward as the stampede begins. Hooves pound like drums of war, 2,000 steers thundering into the storm. Dust turns to mud, rain blinds your eyes, and your bandana clings wet against your face. The goal is simple: get to the front, turn the leaders, curve the herd into a circle before it runs itself to death. But simple doesn't mean easy. Beside you, Diego shouts, rain streaming down his face. "Caramba! I asked for a bath in town, not from heaven." Tom, galloping hard, yells back, "Quit complainin', this bath's free." Even in chaos, laughter cuts the fear. You push forward, urging your horse into the teeth of the storm. Lightning flashes, illuminating the wild eyes and lashing horns of stampeding steers. You grab your rope, swing it high, crack it loud, and your horse weaves between bodies like a dancer. Gradually, painfully, the leaders begin to turn, drawn by your movements, Diego's hollering, Manuel's sombrero waving like a flag. The herd curves, momentum fighting reason, until at last the mass begins to slow, forming a vast circle in the rain. The storm rages above, but the stampede breaks into heavy breathing and stumbling hooves. You collapse forward in the saddle, chest heaving. Your horse trembles beneath you, lather mixing with rain. Around the circle, other cowboys slump, too tired to cheer but alive. The trail boss rides in, water pouring off his hat. "Hell of a job, boys. Best dance I've seen on the prairie." Cookie, who had stayed with the chuck wagon, rides up later with a pot strapped to his saddle, still muttering. "Storm near drown my biscuits. You want soup or you want mush?" The camp roars with laughter, relief shaking off the fear. Even as lightning crackles in the distance, men find humor in the misery. That night, soaked bedrolls steam by the fire. Horses chew wearily, men sip scalding coffee, and the herd grazes quiet. The storm passes, leaving stars bright above wet grass. The prairie storm nearly killed them all. But around the fire, the tale already grows into legend. Diego swears his singing calmed the herd. Tom insists his horse outran lightning. Cookie claims the storm only stopped because it tasted his cooking. And you? You sit silent, staring into the embers, remembering the thunder beneath your boots and the fire in the sky, knowing you'll carry the memory forever. Morning after the storm, camp is soggy. Bedrolls drip, boots squelch, and Cookie curses every man who dares complain. "Don't like wet beans? Try Che-Win on dry air," he barks, slamming ladles into tin plates. The herd survived, but the trail boss decides to give men and cattle a lighter day. Spirits rise when word spreads they'll pass a frontier town by evening, a small settlement with a saloon. The promise of whiskey and music lights up tired eyes. By late afternoon, the trail skirts the town. The herd is bedded down nearby, and half the outfit rides in for supplies. You join them, saddle creaking as you dismount on Main Street. It's little more than a row of clapboard buildings, but after weeks of open prairie, it looks like New York City. Inside the saloon, the air is thick with smoke and the sweet sting of liquor. Piano music plinks cheerfully as cowboys line the bar. Tom slaps you on the back. "First round's on me, boy. Let's wash the mud out our throats." The whiskey burns like fire, but after trail dust, it tastes close to heaven. Diego raises his glass. "To the storm that failed to kill us and the cows too dumb to drown." Laughter erupts, glasses clink, and soon the saloon hums with cowboy voices. A group of locals eyes you warily, but trouble simmers down when the trail boss growls, "We're here for supplies, not funerals." Cowboys may be rowdy, but they know the rule. Fight in town and you might end up behind bars or worse. Manuel, always dramatic, struts to the piano and belts out a tune in Spanish, his sombrero tipped rakishly. The locals blink, then clap along. Even Cookie, dragged in from the wagon, mutters, "He sings worse than my stew tastes," though there's a twinkle in his eye. A barmaid with a laugh like silver offers you another drink. She asks about the trail, about the herd, about the life under stars. Her perfume masks the saloon's stale air, and for a moment you forget the dust and danger. Then Tom leans over, smirking, "Careful, boy." Her smile costs $1 a minute. The night grows loud. Some men gamble, others sing, one poor soul passes out on the floor. But amid the chaos, there's camaraderie, the rare chance to be more than hands in the dust. Eventually, the trail boss rounds everyone up. Drinkin' time's done. Back to the herd. Sunrise comes fast. Groans echo but men obey. They mount up, some swaying in their saddles, and ride back under the cool prairie moon. Later, around the dying campfire, Cookie grumbles, "Whole town's whiskey couldn't wash trails stink off you fools." But his lips twitch in what might almost be a smile. You lie back in your damp bedroll, listening to snores and distant cattle lowing. The saloon's laughter lingers in your ears. Town life, trail life, they blur together tonight, each with its dangers and its comforts. As you drift off, Tom mutters from the next bedroll, "Whiskey's good. Beds are better. Someday I'll get both." Diego replies, half asleep, "In your dreams, viejo." The camp chuckles softly before silence returns. The trail will call again at dawn. But for this one night, the river of whiskey carried you far from dust and danger, and back again safely to the herd that still defines your days. The morning after the saloon stopped, the herd moves slow, almost as slow as the cowboys nursing sore heads. The trail boss rides up and down the line, his glare sharper than a branding iron. "Whiskey wears off faster than shame," he growls. "Keep them cows movin', da." But the true storm brews at the chuck wagon. Cookie, arms crossed, scowls at his fire as if the flames had personally insulted him. His usual gruffness has hardened into something dangerous. "Oh," Tom mutters, "Cookie's madder than a hornet in a rain barrel." Diego, never one to miss drama, adds with a grin, "Maybe he found out his stew tastes like old boots." By midday the truth emerges. Cookie, it seems, had expected the men to save him a drink at the saloon. Instead, they dragged him in at the end, half sober, with only watered-down beer left. "You ungrateful varmints," Cookie bellows. "I feed you 3 times a day, patch up your cuts, even boil coffee strong enough to raise the dead, and you can't spare me a glass of whiskey?" The cowboys chuckle nervously, sensing payback coming. Sure enough, supper that night proves his point. Tin plates clatter down the line filled with something gray, slimy, and unidentifiable. The smell alone makes your eyes water. "What in tarnation is this?" Tom asks, poking his plate with his fork. "Stew," Cookie replies flatly. "Stew of what?" "Don't ask questions you don't want answered," Cookie snaps. Manuel lifts a spoonful, examines it, then drops it back with a splash. "This is not food. This is punishment." Diego dramatically clutches his chest. "He's killing us one spoon at a time." Even the trail boss grimaces but says nothing. Nobody argues with Cookie when he's on the warpath. Desperate, Tom hatches a plan. He waits until Cookie's back is turned, then sneaks to the wagon to peek into the pot. A horrified gasp escapes his lips. "Boys," he whispers, "I think he boiled his socks." The camp erupts in laughter so loud even the cattle lift their heads. Cookie storms over, ladle in hand like a weapon. "You got something to say about my cookin', Tom?" Tom, cornered, blurts, "I'd rather eat dirt than another bite of this stew." Without hesitation, Cookie scoops a ladleful and slaps it into Tom's hat. "There. Now you can wear your dinner to bed." The men howl with laughter, tears streaming down dust-caked cheeks. Even the trail boss hides a grin. Tom tips his hat carefully, goose sliding down his forehead, and mutters, "Guess I'll pass on seconds." The next morning, Cookie's mood softens. Breakfast is back to beans, bacon, and biscuits. As he passes you your plate, he smirks. "Let that be a lesson, kid. A cook don't forget." You nod solemnly, though inside you're laughing. The chuck wagon may be the heart of the outfit, but Cookie is its temper. And sometimes, his revenge is salter than his stew. The trail rolls on, cowboys teasing Tom all day, each joke more outrageous than the last. By evening, Tom's threatening to lasso anyone who says the word socks. Still, it's a welcome distraction. After storms and stampedes, a little comedy tastes sweeter than whiskey. Out here, laughter can be the difference between enduring another mile and breaking under the weight of endless dust. That night, as men drift to sleep, Diego sings softly, altering the words of an old trail song. "Oh, give me beans, but not from that pot, where the socks were boiled and the flavor forgot." The camp chuckles one last time before silence falls. The stars wheel overhead, the herd settles, and Cookie's stew passes quietly into legend. The trail had been too quiet since Cookie's sock stew fiasco. The men joked, spirits light, but the trail boss grew restless. "Quiet means trouble's brewing," he muttered one evening as the herd bedded down. His words proved prophetic. Around midnight, on your second watch, shadows stir at the far edge of the herd. At first you think it's coyotes again, But then you catch the low clink of metal and the hushed curse of men not your own. Rustlers. You signal Jose circling nearby. His eyes widen and he tips his hat low, hand resting on his revolver. Rustlers meant one thing: fight or lose cattle. The men move like ghosts, trying to cut a few dozen steers from the edge of the herd. But the longhorns, nervous after weeks of storms and crossings, are ready to spook. One wrong move and it's not just a theft, it's another stampede. You and Jose ride forward, quiet as possible. Then from the darkness, Tom's unmistakable drawl rings out, way too loud. "Hey boys, didn't know we was throwing a midnight barbecue." The rustlers freeze. The cattle bawl nervously. Diego, ever dramatic, yells, "Ole." You picked the wrong fiesta, and fires a warning shot into the air. Chaos erupts. The herd lurches, hooves pounding, but not full panic yet. Rustlers curse and scatter, some firing back. Bullets whistle past, one sparking off a rock near your stirrup. The trail boss's voice booms through the night, "Circle him. Keep the herd tight." Every cowboy is awake now, riding hard, whooping, cracking ropes to steady the cattle. You lean low in your saddle, guiding your gelding through the mess. The rustlers are bold but disorganized, clearly not expecting so many riders alert and ready. Tom, meanwhile, keeps up his running commentary even as bullets fly. "Aim better, ya varmints. My grandma shoots straighter and she's been dead 10 years. A shot grazes his hat, spinning it off his head. He ducks, then hollers, 'Dang it, that was my good hat.'" Despite the danger, laughter bursts from more than one cowboy. Humor, sharp and reckless, keeps fear at bay. You chase one rustler who's got a rope around a steer's horns. With a swift throw, your own lariat tangles his arm. His horse rears and he crashes into the dirt, cursing. You haul the rope free and drive the steer back into the herd. Minutes stretch like hours, but eventually the rustlers retreat, fading into the night. Only one or two cattle are lost and no cowboys badly hurt. A miracle by trail standards. The men regroup, panting, sweat and dust mixing with powder smoke. The trail boss's jaw is tight, but his eyes gleam with pride. "Good work, boys. We showed him the herd ain't easy pickin'." Tom retrieves his bullet-scarred hat, examines the hole and sighs dramatically. "Reckon I'll charge extra for ventilation." The camp erupts in weary laughter. Even Cookie, who came charging with a frying pan in hand instead of a gun, shakes his head. "Next time I'll serve stew to the rustlers. They'll drop dead faster than lead can do it." The rest of the night passes without incident, the cattle settling under the soft hum of cowboy songs. But no one forgets the clash. Out here, danger rides close, and sometimes the only shield a man has is courage, tempered with a quick joke to keep his hands steady. At dawn, you sip Cookie's bitter coffee, the hole in Tom's hat making him look like a scarecrow dressed for Sunday. Diego bows mock solemn. "Senor Tom, patron saint of terrible luck." The herd moves on, morning sun blazing across fresh tracks left by fleeing rustlers. Another story added to the trail, another reminder that humor and grit go hand in hand when survival's on the line. The herd moves steadily now, the last mile stretching thin as nerves. Every man feels it, the end of the drive is close. By week's end, the cattle will be in Abilene, the wages counted, the outfit scattered like tumbleweeds in the wind. That evening, the trail boss calls a halt earlier than usual. "We'll camp easy tonight," he says. "One last fire together before town swallows you fools whole." His words draw chuckles, but there's weight beneath them. The chuck wagon rattles to a stop, and Cookie sets about preparing supper. He's in an unusually good mood, perhaps because he knows his stew won't be needed much longer. When Tom pokes his head into the wagon, Cookie actually grins. "What's for dinner?" Tom asks cautiously. "Biscuits. Real biscuits. Not the kind that break teeth. Don't tell me I never gave you nothin', Dot." The camp roars with laughter. As dusk settles, the men gather around the fire. Tin cups of coffee are passed, and for once, Cookie's brew doesn't taste like axle grease. Diego strums a battered guitar, its notes twanging into the wide night. Manuel sings low in Spanish, his voice surprisingly gentle. Even Tom adds verses, making up words as he goes, half nonsense, half brilliance. The stories flow like whiskey. Men tell of stampedes survived, rivers crossed, storms endured. Each tale grows taller with every retelling. "Remember the sock stew?" Diego says, eyes dancing. Tom groans. "Lord, don't remind me." I can still taste it. Cookie jabs a finger at him. And you'll taste it again if you cross me. The camp howls. But amid the laughter, quieter moments slip through. Jose admits he'll winter on a Wyoming ranch, hopes to save enough to buy a small herd of his own. Diego speaks of sending money home to Mexico, to the family he hasn't seen in years. Tom mutters about maybe opening a saloon one day, though everyone laughs and says, "You'd drink your profits in a week." When it's your turn, you hesitate, staring into the fire. "I'm thinking of heading north," you say slowly. "Maybe Montana. I hear there's work and land if you're willing to fight for it." The trail boss nods once. "West always needs men with grit. You'll do fine." It's the closest thing to a blessing you'll ever get from him. Later, as stars brighten, the fire burns low. Men drift off to their bedrolls, one by one, until only a handful remain awake. The air carries the soft lowing of cattle, the steady rhythm of horses cropping grass, the faint murmur of Diego humming lullabies to himself. For a long moment, silence stretches. Then Tom breaks it. "Boys," he says seriously, "I've decided when I die, bury me with cookie stew pot. That way the devil take one look, smell what's inside, and send me straight back." The camp erupts in helpless laughter, even the trail boss wiping tears from his eyes. Cookie just snorts. "Ain't no pot in hell big enough for you, Tom." The laughter fades, replaced by quiet contentment. The men lie back beneath the stars, each lost in thoughts of what tomorrow will bring. For you, it's a swirl of emotions. Relief the drive is nearly over. Pride in a job survived. Sadness at the partings ahead. And somewhere in it all, gratitude for the dust, the danger, the laughter, the friendships forged in fire and mud. You close your eyes, listening to the night, and think, this is the real heart of the cowboy life. Not the legends, not the dime novels, not the gunfights townsfolk whisper about. Just this, the work, the grit, the laughter around a fire, the bond between men who gave everything to push 2,000 wild cattle across an unforgiving land. At dawn, you'll ride into Abilene. Wages will be counted, hands will scatter, and the trail will fade into memory. But tonight, under the endless prairie sky, you are still part of something larger. Still a cowboy. And as Cookie grumbles himself to sleep, Tom snores loud enough to scare coyotes, and Diego hums the last notes of his song, you smile in the darkness. Tomorrow will bring change. Tonight belongs to the trail.